It has been another whirlwind day. Thank you for joining me here at the DPB Show. Wow. I feel like I'm in a time warp, but as I told you on Tuesday, more in 2024. There is going to be more good, but there is also going to be more of this business as usual for the Democrat Party and all of those who conspire with the Democrat Party. It's just not the Democrats out there. There are plenty of Republicans um, and neoconservatives, or I should say those within the Republican Party that are neoconservatives, uh, the establishment that are going to continue to push the envelope of everything and anything. Once again, thank you for joining me here. We will be live Tuesdays and Thursdays, 4 to 5, on all four formats. We'll be on Rumble, YouTube, X, and Facebook. So thank you once again. The chat is open, so I'm going to open that up right now. I almost forgot to do that, so I can see what you guys are having to say out there. So at any time, feel free. I hope to see you and hear you chatting. I see you, not necessarily with my eyes, but I see your comments, and that's what's important about this format, what we're doing, what we're trying to continue to push with the envelope. But let me just get right to it. I see that the audience is building, so I appreciate everyone that has joined in today. Trump's candidacy is challenged by a group of Illinois residents. This was literally released at 9:33 a.m. Central Standard Time today. And the irony of that is this was put out by Chicago's WBEZ, which is a NPR news source. So once again, government paid for radio is back at it quickly. They jumped into the arena to let us know that his candidacy here in Illinois will be challenged almost simultaneously with the submission of the candidacy packet. So Trump is submitting his packet. I happen to be in the room with the representatives of the delegation team, being Mark Shaw, Travis Aiken. They were at the table. There was another gentleman who was assisting Mark Shaw. And then, of course, there were at least a dozen of us who gathered in support. We were at the Illinois State Board of Elections office down in Springfield, Illinois. And I wanted really to go just to see who was going to show up and how many people. There was a delegation for Biden. It happened to be about 5 people, a couple people for DeSantis, I think one gentleman for Vivek, and I think there were a couple representatives for Nikki Haley. I know that there were other people in the room. I can't tell you. I'm going to do my research like I encourage you to do. Go out. You can go to the Illinois State Board of Elections website, and you can see who actually filed to be on the ballot this March 19th for the primary here in Illinois. But what I wanted to get to in regards to the fact that we were there gathered and the delegation was submitting this, they meaning the people who are filing this lawsuit, and I'm going to read a little bit from that article. This was planned out. I mean, months ahead of time. In fact, they probably are doing this in every state. Now, every state is not the same when it comes to delegates and petitions and how you submit that. Some states just require a signature by the candidate. They don't request or require, I should say, because it is a requirement. It is part of state law in Illinois that you, as a candidate for the presidency of the United States, go out within each congressional district and petition the people within each congressional district. So you have your delegates out there, or your delegate petitions, but you also have a statewide petition for Trump. Just to give you a few of the numbers, Trump's petition statewide, you could start circulation on October 4th. That's about a month after the time when statewide candidates are circulating. So they circulated from roughly September 4th until December 4th. Presidential candidates have from October 4th, so about a month delay, until January 4th to submit their candidacy packets. In fact, the last day to file is tomorrow. So where a statewide candidate, or a state candidate, I should say, in a state rep district, um, or a state senator or a congressperson, they have 1 week. So it started on November 27th and ran through December 4th. We had to submit by today, or tomorrow, I should say, but we went today. Obviously, I believe everyone that is going to be on the ballot for the presidency under their respective parties, because once again, a primary is just that. You have to declare what ballot you're going to receive. So if you're wanting to vote for a Democrat candidate, you request a Democrat ballot. If you want to vote for Republican candidates, you request a Republican ballot. Now, there are crossovers, and granted, it doesn't restrict you from pulling a Democrat ballot or a Republican ballot, depending on, your preference. It's basically strictly what you want to do on that given day. But the main thing is in this process, and this is what I want to really just drill down into today and try to simplify it, because I know that a lot of this gets a little crazy, and I do want to get back to this article. So we show up there at the Illinois State Board of Elections. I just want to see who's going to submit. Fascinating. Quickly, I get out of my car, and I'm literally a couple steps out of my car, and a reporter from the Chicago Tribune, who I've recognized from the years gone by with Bailey's campaigns and my own campaigns, he wanted to comment, so I did that. So if you happen to get to the Chicago Tribune, or you see any of their postings out there on the internet, by all means, you might see me. Video wise, I don't know. I don't know how they uh, disseminate their information and get that to the public. I don't spend a lot of time tracking the Chicago Tribune. Used to have a subscription, don't need one. Sun Times, don't need one. Most of the biased media, I do still look a little bit at the New York Times and the Washington Post for good reasons. I think it's mostly because of the firewalls, right? I think we all are like that. I'm not going to read an article that I have to pay for. I want free articles, or I want free information. I'm going to figure out a way to get that. It's just part of my nature, who I am. Yes, I'm a skinflint. I'm a frugal person. Um, I've grown up that way. I learned that through my upbringing, growing up on a poultry farm with my grandparents, and counting nickels and dimes, and selling chickens, and hatching eggs, and selling eggs. It was just it was instilled with me. When we talk about indoctrination, I was indoctrinated to be very wise and thorough with how I spent my money. I know that was a little more information than you wanted about my upbringing, but so that's the essence of going there and being part of that process. Granted, I am one of the delegates. I'm an alternate delegate in the 17th congressional district. And so I wanted to make sure that the process, not to have, I've never had attended I had been there as a state rep candidate, but I never had been there when the presidential candidates submit their um, candidacy packets. So I wanted to see that firsthand. And so when I got there, like I said, I was interviewed by the Chicago Tribune reporter. There were other media there. I'm standing talking to our delegation. Behind me was the Biden delegation. In fact, little factoid, all for the most part, at least most of the candidates submitting, I guess it must be a tradition that you go to Charlie Parker's Diner. I don't know if any of you have dined there. My first time at Charlie Parker's Diner, it was a Quonset hut. I guess it used to be a barracks for an ROT, or not ROTC, but for a military, what do you call those things? National Guard. I guess that's what I'm trying to get to. That's where they utilized training for the Springfield Armory. An armory. See, I knew I was going to get there. If I talked long enough, I'd get there. But they've retrofitted this into a diner. It's very cool if you ever get a chance. But we went to this diner, and right behind us was the delegation for Biden. And we were friendly. They got up as they were leaving, and they gave salutations and said, well, we'll see you on the campaign trail. And interesting enough, they didn't have people like we did standing there with placards and Trump 2024 placards. I mean, the excitement was great, but that gets me into this article. And so I just wanted to set the stage. So we're there at 8 o'clock, doors open. We actually arrived at 7:30. And then we're allowed to go in and immediately start the process. Just so you know, I believe I got a little bit off kilter, but Trump had within 10 days of October 4th, Trump had, as far as statewide petition signatures, Trump exceeded the minimal amount within a couple days. I think it was 3,000 3,000. We had 5,000. We got to 10,000 signatures for Trump, and we decided to stop the Trump signatures because we could only submit 5,000 at the most, and we had 10,000 signatures, and they were still coming in. And in fact, we ended up with many more than that. But we needed delegate signatures. The congressional districts are the important, are more, not more important, but they are more important. Because if you don't get the delegates seated and you don't get the delegates petitions turned in, then even if you had a win in the popular vote for Trump, if your delegates aren't seated, then there would be no one to nominate your presidential candidate on behalf of the state of Illinois. And that's what we were doing, obviously, there is making sure that the delegations are equally represented throughout the districts, the 17th congressional districts, myself being in the 17th congressional district. So that's, that was the signal. All the districts, I should say, surpassed the verifiable signatures that were needed. So they're not contesting whether the signatures were valid for Trump or that any of the petitions were verified or valid signatures. What they're contesting is this, and I'm going to read this to you, and then I really want to go into this probably for a good part of the show today. 5 voters formally objected to former President Donald Trump newly filed state nominating petitions Thursday, citing his role fomenting the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol in 2021, and now adding Illinois to the national debate about Trump's legal status as a presidential candidate. In a filing obtained exclusively by NPR, WBEZ out of Chicago, and the Chicago Sun-Times, the objectors believe Trump is disqualified as a presidential candidate and want the state board of elections to block him from appearing on Illinois March 19 primary and November 5th general election ballots. They argue that Trump is disqualified by a provision of the 14th Amendment. I know many of you have heard that over and over again. It's going to be continued until, the first caucus in Iowa, the first primary held as a caucus, is January 15th. I think a lot of this is going to find its way before then. Tomorrow, I believe you will see a ruling from the United States Supreme Court in regards to Maine and Colorado with this same argument, which is what we knew they would do. The blue states are going to be blue, and they're going to continue to want more and more disruptive division created amongst those people. You talk about voter suppression, you talk about election interference. That's what you're really dealing with here. This is what they're trying to do. They're trying to interfere with an election before we even get any of them started. I mean, ballots printed. So they argue that Trump is disqualified by a provision in the 14th Amendment that bars insurrectionists from holding public office. Let's just stop right there for a minute. Trump has never been charged, not today, not tomorrow, never will be charged with the crime of insurrection. So if he's never been charged with the crime, then how can they utilize the word insurrectionist? They still believe it was an insurrection. In fact, go out to X right now and pull up Joe Biden's X page, Twitter X, and look at what he put out there as a video. I mean, it is so. It is. You talk about more in 2024, more insurrection. You can't get enough insurrection. I can't get no insurrection from the Democrat Party because that's all they're doing on his video that he's put out. It's a campaign promotion video. He shows clips, stage clips, because you and I both know that that entire thing was political theater. I've stated that from day one when I was physically there in the Capitol and I watched it right before my eyes. It was basically a few hundred actors that were put in place. Now, I'm not saying there weren't some normal people that got a little zealous and caught up into the craziness, but definitely it was a production. How could they have had that many camera angles inside the Capitol, outside the Capitol, staged all over the place? It was a setup. They needed it for the next election cycle, 2024. They had to have an insurrection because they knew they couldn't govern on policy. We're seeing the ramifications of a Joe Biden presidency, illegitimate presidency. Can I say that? They sure didn't have a problem saying that Donald Trump was an illegitimate president. Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Jimmy Carter, anyone that could take the camera was saying that Donald Trump was an illegitimate president. Well, I'm saying it right here, right now. I don't believe him. In fact, usually I call him Vice President Biden because he is not the president. He didn't win the election. It was rigged. And that's what they're trying to do now. They don't know how to get enough ballots in the ballot box now, because how could they go past 81 million? Because I do believe that Trump is going to get the most votes, popular votes, that have ever been achieved by any presidential candidate in the history of the United States of America. And they know that's coming. They see it. They see the decline in the minority vote, and whether it be the Hispanic communities, the Black communities, they see they're losing ground, and they can't afford that. That takes away from those 81 million. I just say that obviously tongue in cheek because we know there's no way that Joe Biden got 81 million votes, but that's what that's what their game plan is total disruption, to try to disrupt the public. And as I've even reported before or stated before, I don't report. I'm not a journalist. Don't pretend to be a journalist. As I've stated before, there might not be an election. These people are off the rail. They will do anything. This is just warming up. More in 2024. We haven't seen anything yet. So they go on to say that they argue that Trump is disqualified by a provision in the 14th Amendment, once again, as insurrection, which we know he's never been charged with, uh, and encourage rioters to swarm the Capitol on January 6th, which peacefully and patriotically protest. Let's just put that on Hyperloop, and that way you can hear that there is no evidence. You know, they talk about evidence, no evidence of election fraud. Well, we have no evidence that Joe Biden actually won the election, and we have no evidence that Donald J. Trump incited a oh, I almost said it. I almost gave a old Chuck Schumer on the Senate floor faux pas. He didn't incite a you know what? He incited an insurrection, not the other word. But so they basically were trying to block Biden's, and they can't spell Biden's name right in this article. It says Biden's certification as a president. The state election board has openly questioned its authority to invoke meaning our own state election board, its authority to invoke the constitutional insurrection clause as a basis to sack a presidential candidate. The agency has suggested the dispute is one that Illinois courts or the legislature needs to resolve. Please give me a break. We have super majorities in both the House and the Senate in the state of Illinois. Every statewide office, from you name it, governor, lieutenant governor, comptroller, auditor, treasurer, the list goes on, I was trying to think the name. We have Mendoza, we have Frederick, we have Auditor General Frank Mantino, um, and the list goes on and on. All those positions in the state of Illinois are held by Democrats. How in the world is a legislature that is controlled by supermajorities going to decide fairness in the state of Illinois? They've yet to live up to that, right? And they wouldn't continue to live up with it in this. So naturally, those arguing against Trump's eligibility are part of what their lawyers say is a diverse group of voters from Chicago, North Suburban Lindenhurst, and downstate Fairview Heights. And did they just throw this in? This is literally in the article that I'm reading to you. The word that I'm reading is Colfax. So you've got Chicago, North Suburban Lindenhurst, and downstate Fairview Heights, and Colfax. They are being represented by a nonpartisan voting rights organization, Free Speech for People. Free Speech for People. You always got to love how they basically describe themselves as activist organizations, because Free Speech for People, that seems to be so innocent. And the two Chicago law firms. So you got the Free Speech, the activist group, Free Speech for People, and the two Chicago law firms. And they went on to say, we're not engaging in politics here. We're engaging in the application of constitutional principles, said attorney Matthew Piers. Look him up, a civil rights and constitutional law attorney and president of the Hughes, Sokol, Piers, Resnick, and Dim law firm, which helped draft the objection. The law must be obeyed. And if the laws aren't obeyed, you lose your constitutional democracy. Yes, I read that correctly. Constitutional democracy. Hold on. Let me get back here to my Constitution real quick. I challenge you to go to the Constitution of the United States of America and find where they refer to our government as a constitutional democracy. We are a constitutional republic. We are a republic. We are a representative republic form of government. That is one thing that I don't believe the Democrat Party will ever get correct, because they want to continue to lump us in as a democracy. And we are a form of democracy. That form of democracy, which is never mentioned in the Constitution, is a republic. As Benjamin Franklin so eloquently said upon leaving Independence Hall, we have given you a republic if you can keep it. And that's what's under fire right now. So they're trying to protect this democracy, as they say. It's really just that simple. I mean, come on. We're going to go ahead and try to get somebody thrown off the ballot for committing a crime that they never committed. It's just that simple. I guess two can play that game. The one, and this guy obviously was formerly with Mayor Harold Washington. That should tell you everything you need to know. The group's complaint was filed after Trump's campaign tendered signatures. Imagine that, planned out. So it all planned out. It's going to continue to build. Lawsuit seeking to block Trump from the ballot because of the insurrection provision. Insurrection provision, once again, they get used to it. They're going to talk about it. They're going to show it in a video. They are going to relive what we saw at the beginning of Biden's presidency and continued through the unselect committee. I mean, I call it the select committee, unselect committee, but it's called the select committee. And it's continued to this day, right? All they've done to govern is to brand identity politics, gender confusion. They have divided this country through the weaponized arm of the legacy media, what I call the propaganda media. They've utilized agencies within the government to be weaponized against the people. And yet they talk about an insurrection. That is what I always find fascinating, that the people that are even participating, because those people today that were there on behalf of the Biden campaign, submitting his petitions, they're all playing along. It's the land of make believe. They live in this world that isn't reality. In fact, they make it up as they go, as you can see. And why do they do that? if you have a chance, go back and listen to Dan Bongino's podcast today. He really nails it because he talks about the people who are out there orchestrating what we see before our eyes, or the illusions that sometimes are projected before our eyes through the mainstream media. They're illusionists. They That's evidenced in what's going on with the Epstein list and the release of the list of those who were physically on the island of Epstein Island. And this is the types of people. I mean, you and I both can probably agree upon this. I didn't grow up in a manner, as I just shared with you earlier. I was on a poultry farm, as a young kid, just living life, right? Playing baseball in the summer league ball, picking apples from my grandparents' trees, cherries, pears, apricots. Um, I was, working early in the morning. I'd get up and go into the frozen lockers. I'd hook up with the guys that were driving the routes, and I'd jump in one of their trucks and we'd go and deliver chickens. That's my background. All of my life, I remember working. That's what I did. Um, I didn't shy away. I mean, I wanted to work at a very early age, and I did. That was, as I said, it was part of the fiber that was woven into me by my grandparents and my father and mother, that work. You had to work. So so that definitely is my background, and that's continued. So when I see the people who are kind of orchestrating things like this, these are people that we are never going to really see. These are people that I have seen. I'm not very comfortable around them. Those are those folks that are, above the air, right? They're above the clouds kind of people. And and I usually have found there's very few of those people that you can sit and have a conversation with. And this is the ultra wealthy people or the ultra connected people. That's what we have involved in the Epstein Island. uh, I don't know, what do you call it? A debacle. Because ultimately, why is it coming up now? I mean, come on, they put Ghislaine Maxwell on trial months ago. It's no different than Trump, right? They they had this information about Trump. If they wanted to bring charges against Trump for anything, they could have done it 3.5 years ago. Why now? Why at the halfway through 2023 leading into 2024, after he announces that he's running again? And I have to agree, if Trump doesn't announce that he's running for president, they would have gone after whoever they would have chose. It would have been DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, Vivek Ramaswamy. It wouldn't have mattered. It would have been the Republican candidate, because what Republicans stand for, the virtues, the platform, they don't agree with it. Tons of people are jumping in on the chat. I have been going nonstop for 28 minutes. Let me take a moment just to catch my breath before I jump into this. For some reason, the screen just popped off. I had you guys there in my comments. Oh, there we go. I don't know why that came over here, but I'm going to get rid of that. I want to get rid of that. There we go. Ryan McKenzie, thank you. Troy, thanks, Troy. Right there, Troy. My friend Troy Smith, well done. Troy was one of the first people to sign the Trump petition. He and his wife Jen both signed, and their daughter Maddie. So thank you guys for doing that. Troy has a great story in of itself. I hopefully maybe someday he'll come on my show and tell his story. My tried and true friend, who I hope to get in studio, because I can just send him a link, and since he's available from 4 to 5 on Tuesdays and Thursdays via Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, and X. I might have to get Ryan in here. There's Ryan right there. Two things there. He's not an officer of the United States. You can't be removed when a crime hasn't been committed, charged, or convicted. The left loves to accuse the right of eroding democracy. This does exactly that. They can't beat Trump fairly, so they'll remove or assassinate him. Sadly, you're right, Ryan. They might do that. And yes, right before the Iowa caucus, this is the game plan. They're going to continue to march to the beat. I find it interesting. Um, Oh, I left this out because it seems sometimes that I am always talking about my friend Darren Bailey. As you can see, I've got my Darren Bailey hat on. I wore that down there intentionally today with my Trump memorabilia that was purchased for me by my good friends Nick and Desi Anderson. See, I made Nick a girl, Nikki. Um, but Nick and Desi bought this for me for a Christmas gift when they were vacationing down at one of Trump's resorts, Doral, uh, and gave it to me as a Christmas present. So I'm very appreciative of that. I think it looks good. It's got the little American flag over here on the sleeve. But my Darren Bailey hat, I I I was sitting there, and I think I started telling you this, but I am so excited today about what I witnessed and what I saw. And now, in light of knowing that we're going in the right direction, because anytime they come after you in this manner, you know you're on to something, you know you're going in the right direction. Um, but I'm sitting there with or standing there with some folks outside of the Board of Elections, and lo and behold, in comes the Bailey Mobile. Darren pulls up, and one of his good friends, who is very instrumental in the Trump campaign, pops out of the front seat on the passenger side. I'm just elated because Darren's there. I've got my Darren Bailey hat on, but there were also uh, opponents, or Darren's opponents were there. Darren is running in the 12th congressional district, and there were representatives, I should say, of Mike Boss' campaign that were there. Two young men that I have gotten to know, and I'm friendly with them. Unfortunately, they're into the establishment way of politics, and sometimes when you're young, you're going to go where there's money. It's unfortunate, but if somebody's willing to pay you, you're willing to be a part of their campaign. Um, and whether you believe in that campaign, I don't necessarily, you know, would encourage young people to jump into campaigns where they don't truly believe in the candidate. And I voiced that today when I was there, um, standing around watching the process of receiving the packet. And I was saying to him, guys, bottom line is this: Darren Bailey, Mike Boss, myself, you know what? We're not the future of the Republican Party or the United States of America as a constitutional republic. You guys are. There were two high school students there. They were brought by one of the delegates. One happened to be the daughter of the delegate. The other was a nephew. And I just said to them, wow, to be your age, you know, high school, and to be able to witness what you're witnessing here today, there is nothing like it. The interesting part about that is I no longer said that, and 5 minutes later, Darren Bailey is in front of him saying about the same thing, talking about his experience and just getting involved in the last 7 years. Even though he's on the school board for a period of time, he wasn't really politically involved. And so he was applauding them for being there and giving them kudos and saying, if there's anything he could do, he's more than willing, but also encouraging them to get behind somebody you believe in. You believe in their messaging, you believe in their objective, their platform, the way they view the world. We have plenty of bad politicians. We have, in fact, more bad politicians than we have good ones. That's sad to say, and that's both sides of the aisle. And those folks, those young people, are going to inherit the decisions that have been made by people that sometimes they might have even supported. So Darren was there, had an opportunity to chat with him, uh, and it was inspiring. Took some pictures. If you guys would like, go out to Facebook to my personal page, David Paul Blumenshine, or at the DPB Show on Facebook. I will get it up, post it on X, and maybe I'll get something out there. Let's see, where else? Oh, that was it. Because I can't post on Rumble or YouTube. I can just do these little thumbnails. But it was good to see Darren. As I was saying, Darren quickly was sensitive to it. He's already gone out. I encourage you to go to his Facebook page. Um, he posted a couple different things. Namely, number one is he said, "Here it is. How long did it take?" Is what as I was saying. Here they go again. Radical liberals who hate democracy are scheming, hate democracy. I know we refer to it. They hate the country. Mark Levin wrote a book. The Democrats hate America. And I'm believing that with all of my heart and all of my mind. I don't see one Democrat that's standing up for the constitutional way of life. They want to rewrite the Constitution. They want to rewrite everything we're about. They really skew everything. They lie. They're they're not forthright. They're not transparent. They're not honest about where we're at as a country. But they're scheming to remove President Trump from the ballot. Sheer nonsense. Why? They fear they can't change the rules and rig another election. They got one shot at it, and unfortunately, it didn't work out so well for them. They got a little side note. They got one shot at immunizing, inoculating. Those are words. People with a uh, a jab. And I've covered that many times on my show. They didn't get it all buy-in and get everyone vaccinated. I think that says a lot, but I also believe that's intentional because that was part of their scheme, getting everyone to buy into the mask, to the vaccine. And granted, I believe there were people, especially those in the most, you know, those particular age groups of people, the elderly, that were the most compromised. Obviously, there are other situations where people, yes, would benefit from it. But most of what we're finding out right now is most of the people that did get vaccinated didn't need to be vaccinated. And one thing that I will stand by, nobody in the public needs to be wearing a mask. Absolutely. The Cochrane report, the Cadillac of all medical reports, has disproved the efficacy of putting a cloth, a piece of cloth over your face and breathing through it. I was talking with my wife about it because she's a school teacher, and she had, seen these masks that young people would wear day in, day out, never changing them. And some of these masks actually had mold in them. How healthy is that? Especially in a school environment where there's so many young people, they're little petri plates in of themselves already, carrying plenty of everything and anything. That's what makes the world go around. That's how we build our immunities within our systems. But, you know, that was just one example of them trying to take control of our country. And now that we're at the end of Joe Biden's tenure and the Green New Deal doesn't seem to be that good of a deal, and the climate change piece seems to be falling apart. The EV market, obviously, that in of itself is imploding. Not enough electric vehicles are selling on the open market because most of us aren't in the category of being an elitist or having the ability, to go out and pay more for a car than we actually paid for our house. We just don't have that kind of cash laying around. And those are the people that we don't see. Once again, these are the untouchables, those we don't see. They're the ones pulling the strings. They're the ones they believed that they were going to buffalo the United States of America into this fallacy, this fantasy, this make-believe world. And it didn't resonate. As Darren went on to say, he said, uh, they fear they can't change the rules and rig another election. Their desperation is showing. I'm not just standing with President Trump. I'm rallying beside him, fighting for truth and justice. I'm fighting with the people of not only Illinois, but Southern Illinois, because that's where his district is. But he still is such a great leader when it comes to having true servant leaders in government, which is what we need more of. But go out to his page. He's got a couple other things. I do like the fact that, and this is just a side note, and I know that we're quickly approaching the time when I want to usually bail out of here because I don't want to keep you too long. And I appreciate everyone who has joined in on the conversation today. Uh, Ryan's continued to comment here. The goal is to remain in power forever and eliminate the competition. Democrats hate being without power. Exactly. They're power driven, but this gets back to the gun ban that's going on Darren's page. My opponent won't say it, but I'll keep it. He's talking about Mike Bost, career politician, state government, federal government. I mean, once you get past 30 years in the swamp, that's what you are. Darren himself has only been in an elected official outside of the school board, where he sat on a school board for 4 years. He was 2 years as a House representative, 2 years as a state senator. Then he ran for the governor's office. But he said, my opponent won't say it, but I'll keep saying it. I won't comply. The Second Amendment isn't about putting on camo for a camera. It's about protecting yourself and your family. If the governor wants this rifle, and he's holding it's a picture of him holding one of his rifles. If the governor wants this rifle, he can come take it himself. I won't comply with his unconstitutional law. We must stand up for our freedoms and not back down under pressure. The other picture that had Darren on New Year's Eve sitting at a table, and he he was doing a puzzle, and I want to read this one too. I'll be here putting together this puzzle, and there's a puzzle in front of him, waiting for Pritzker to knock on my door. And alongside the puzzle is two of Darren's rifles that he has, semi-automatic rifles that that should be registered according to J.B. Pritzker's illegal gun ban, which is yet to be proven, but it will be. But Pritzker can knock on my door and take my guns. I will not comply. Go out to Darren's page, share his page, and share my page. That's what I'm encouraging you to do. We're just getting started. As the end of 2023 came and we had disruption in our own lives, my wife and I, and our families. We know that there's a bigger, better picture out there. And I've spoken into that many times. God is in control. I truly believe that. He is resurrecting yours truly. Obviously, I've been gifted the ability to have this studio with the lights and everything else. Yes, it's not my old stomping grounds at the radio station, but I believe someday maybe I will be back on the radio. I don't know if that's what God has in store. I know right now God is leading me to be here every Tuesday and Thursday from 4 to 5, and just to get out some of the topics I have that I've seen. Many of them I witnessed. Like I said, I was physically there today to experience the delegation from the presidential delegation from the from the Trump campaign submitting their campaign packet alongside other candidates who were also turning theirs in. But that's something that I know that most of you who are watching, you didn't do that today. So it's kind of cool to have somebody that actually is there that can give you a firsthand account. No different than January 6th. I was there. Interview me. Of course, if you're the Washington Post and you interview me, you're going to put in some, cock and bull story that is so far from the truth. But that's what they do. That is one of it's almost like it's their playbook 101. Just make up whatever you think could be the scenario of any given event like January 6th, and just publish it and run with it, and don't let up. It's also part of Sal Alinsky's 13 rules for radicals, right? So they've isolated it and then they don't let it up. Well, we need to start isolating their party, because we are basically standing behind the people who are trying to advance the American way. They are trying to destroy what we have obviously been able to realize here on in this country for over 250 years. And we're in the way. Darren Bailey's in the way. I get truly excited when I have an opportunity just to spend a little time with him because he is the most down to earth guy you would ever meet. He is so uncomfortable in the situation of running for office because that's not what makes Darren tick. Darren loves people. First and foremost, he loves God, and he takes the love that God gives him and he loves people. I want to be like Darren Bailey. I want to have that inner peace that he has. I believe, that God has instilled a lot of that into me, but it's having friends like Darren and spending just a brief period of time with him and having the opportunity just to chuckle and laugh. I mean, most of what we did today was we just laughed because most of this is laughable. You have to laugh it off, but you also have to be serious as he is. He's willing to put himself out there saying, I will not comply. I will not comply. Not with the mask, not with any of it. You're not going to take away my freedoms and the rights that are guaranteed to every one of us in the Constitution, in the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence. That's what we stand on. That's what we stand for. Hey, I look at the clock here. Let me go real quick before I let you off. Once again, John Allen, see that you've chimed in. Let me see what John has to say. If others believe they can control the election process in this manner, it will be the beginning of the real insurrection. John, interesting you say that. You know, how in the world do they think that anyone that is behind President Donald J. Trump is going to sit back and stand for this? That's the sad part. I don't want political violence. I condemn political violence. I condemned political violence on January 6th as I was coming home from the event in DC. I don't believe in political violence. And if you see the reproduction of the media's reproduction or uh, the Pelosi administration or the Pelosi way, I should say, I can't call it an administration, the Speaker of the House at the time's way of portraying or reproducing the events of January 6th, yeah, you would believe that there was this violent, you know, just this uncontrollable violent outbreak in Washington. That's the furthest thing from the truth. There were over close to 1 million people there that day, well over 500,000. I can't tell you the exact number. I don't, you know, estimating crowds. That's not my gig, but I'm just going based on what some of the best people who do know about that, the experts, what they report. But if there were that many, and to date, how many people have been arrested and charged? And oh, by the way, no one, no one has been charged with the crime of insurrection. Hey, I could go a lot longer. I feel like I'm just getting started, but I will be back on Tuesday. As I promised, I am going to start building the show based on guests and getting people back in here for interviews, especially some of these candidates who are running for office. I want them in. I want to hear what they have to say. I have other guests that I'm constantly lining up. I would love to hear more from you guys, but ultimately, the best thing that you guys could do is to go out, like, share, and tell many people, hey, DPB's onto something here. And I want to make this as casual as it is, a conversation with you and me and anybody else that wants to join us, right? And putting in the comments in the comment section is great. I do plan on getting that Ryan McKenzie in here. There you go, Ryan. Got to get that scheduled so I can send you a link because that's all it takes. I literally go down here and I invite you. And then if you have a computer and you have a camera and you have a mic on your laptop, you will be in studio. I could add you to the studio and it'll be a split screen and we can have a conversation back and forth, which is really cool because ultimately This is what they're most afraid of. Is there was a time when it was Walter Cronkite. I know I'm dating myself because I am 60 years of age. Walter Cronkite, and I've tried to, what's his name? Oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank on it. But it was the old timers, right? In the news networks, controlled by 3 networks. And we were literally told what to believe, always. Now, back then, those media journalists were more trustworthy than they are today. And I think most of the time they were giving us the truth. But unfortunately, when you're not giving all the truth, and a truth, which is something that has been reported for a long time, is a truth is what seems to be what we have today, then we don't have the truth. And that's what I'm hopeful that I can continue to bring here to the DPB show is the truth. By no means do I get it right all the time, but I aspire to get it right as many times as I can. And the only way I do that is having you, the audience, my friends who have come alongside me, keeping me accountable to making sure that I'm giving factual information. If I'm wrong, I want to be held to account. I want to tell you, "Hey, I'm wrong. This is the truth. I was telling you a truth. I don't want to be part of the way that they operate." Hey, thank you once again. I look forward to Thursday or Tuesday's show next week. Who knows what's going to drop? I have thought about jumping on and doing some other shorts and clips, and you might see that. So if you get a notification, but in the interim, please go out, like, subscribe, the DPB show at the DPB show, because at YouTube you actually have to put it in at the DPB show, all in, no spaces to get to pull up and populate right away. But I do appreciate you. Thank you. I bid you all peace, obviously, in this new year, more in 2024. We're just getting started. You haven't seen anything yet, but we're going to see a lot. Hey, until next time, peace be with you. I love you guys. I'll talk to you soon.